Don't just stand there. Get yourself to a hospital. At this rate, you won't be waking up tomorrow morning.
What is she even talking about? Hey, do you have any idea who you're dealing with?
I really should not have picked that up. 3 floors underground. No windows. One fluorescent bulb buzzing overhead like it had somewhere better to be. Aisha sat strapped to a metal chair, wrists zip-tied behind her back, and yet, somehow, impossibly, she looked like she was waiting for a bus. 36 years old. Owner of a small Korean medicine clinic tucked into a Gangnam back alley. Her hair, a full, glorious afro, shed inherited from her Nigerian father, rose from her head in a perfect sphere, catching the sickly, fluorescent light like a halo that had seen better days. Somewhere in the room, something smelled like old frying oil, the kind that's been sitting in a pan since last Tuesday. Aisha glanced down at the floor. A manila envelope lay there, slightly crumpled. She stared at it. Her expression shifted, just barely, just at the edges, into something that wasn't quite fear. The door swung open. 3 men walked in, black suits, no sound. The one in front stopped right in front of Aisha and looked down at her with the practiced calm of someone who'd made a lot of people very nervous. He didn't say a word. Most people in Aisha's position would be crying, or begging, or at the very minimum hyperventilating. Aisha tilted her head, slowly, looked him up and down like she was reading a chart. "Your right shoulder," she said. "That's been going on a while, hasn't it?" The man's jaw tightened. "The way you walk, you're compensating. I can tell in about 3 seconds. Occupational habit mine, not yours." Nobody said anything. The man turned and walked out. All 3 of them left. The door locked. Aisha sat alone in the silence. She didn't smile. She knew better. But the corner of her mouth twitched anyway. So how did she end up here? Good question. It started with wind. 7 in the morning, outside her clinic. The manila envelope tumbled down the alley and landed right at her feet, like it had been addressed to her personally. She picked it up, looked inside, read the whole thing, closed it. Then she walked 2 full blocks before she stopped, turned around, went back, read it again, closed it again. Then she pulled out her phone to call the police, and that's when someone grabbed her wrist, hard, and that was that. Now here she was, 3 floors underground, the envelope on the floor in front of her. You want to know what was inside it, don't you? Yeah, that's kind of the whole thing. 28 floors above, Kang Tae-jun's office. Soul spread out behind him like a painting he'd never once bothered to admire. 48 years old. 2 deep lines carved into the space between his eyebrows, permanent, like they'd been put there on purpose. Nobody in this room had ever seen those lines smooth out. Not once. A subordinate delivered his report. We couldn't recover the envelope. Tae-jun kept staring out the window. Was she scared? A pause. No, sir. He turned around. One eyebrow moved up, then down, by approximately 2 millimeters. That was it. That was the whole reaction. The subordinate was sweating through his collar. Kang Tae-jun had not smiled in 20 years. Everyone who knew him understood what that meant. The absence of a smile on a face like his was somehow worse than a threat. 11p. The basement door opened again. Kim Do-han. Tall, quiet. The kind of man who moved through rooms like a shadow that had learned good manners. He was carrying a convenience store bag, 2 triangle kimbap and 1 warm carton of soy milk. Aisha looked at the bag, looked at the man. "Thank you," she said. Do-han set the bag on the floor and turned to leave. "Your left knee," Aisha said. "That's not doing great either, is it?" He stopped, didn't turn around, just stood there for a half second, then walked out. Aisha, hands still zip-tied, tore open the kimbap with the efficiency of someone who'd eaten inconveniently before. She took 1 bite, and for the first time since this whole thing started, she exhaled, long and slow. The soy milk was still warm. The envelope sat on the floor across from her. She tried not to look at it. She failed. 3 times. Next morning, they brought her upstairs. The office was tall and still, sunlight cutting through the windows in long, flat lines across the floor. There was a leather couch along the far wall. Aisha saw it immediately. She walked straight past the two guys trying to stop her, sat down on it, and then very deliberately lay all the way down. Her afro sank into the cushion and spread out sideways like it was getting comfortable too. The men froze. The hardwood floor groaned once. In 20 years, not one person had behaved like this in this room. Not one. At least, not one who was still around to talk about it. Kang Tae-jun looked up from his desk. There was a woman on his couch, looking at his ceiling. "This sofa's expensive, right?" she said, addressing the ceiling directly. "It's doing wonders for my lower back." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. For the first time in 20 years, Kang Tae-jun did not know what to say. 3 full seconds of not knowing. He looked back down at the papers on his desk. There was nothing written on them. Everyone in the room noticed. Nobody said so. Do-han cleared his throat. "Sir," Tae-jun said quietly. "Get her up." Aisha sat up on her own, slowly. Looked directly at Kang Tae-jun. No fear, and that was the strange part. She looked at him the way a doctor looks at a patient who's been ignoring symptoms for too long. Patient. Precise. A little sad. "Your right shoulder," she said again. "What happened there?" Tae-jun's shoulder moved just slightly, involuntarily, up and then back down. In 20 years, no one had made his body do something he didn't intend. The men standing along the walls looked at the floor. That was the rule here. If you saw something you weren't supposed to see, you looked at the floor. It kept everybody alive. Out in the hallway, one of the younger guys stared at the floor. 2 crumpled kimbap wrappers, both empty. Clean, even. "She's got a good appetite," he muttered, mostly to himself. The guy next to him turned his head to the side. He knew better than to laugh. Had known better than to laugh for 3 years. But the thing was, he'd just watched their boss, Kang Tae-jun, a man who had not hesitated once in 2 decades, get completely derailed by a zip-tied woman in an afro who wanted to know about his shoulder. He turned his head a little further. Nobody had to say anything. They all felt it. Something about that woman. Something was definitely going on with her. Back inside, Tae-jun said it flat. "Tell me what was in that envelope." Aisha looked at him for a moment. Just looked. Then she tilted her head. "What envelope?" His eyes narrowed. She didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't do anything except look back at him with the exact same calm she'd walked in with. Outside the window, a pigeon landed on the sill and turned its head left, then right, inspecting the city. In that entire office, the only 2 things that weren't rattled were that pigeon and that woman. Tae-jun knew it right then. She'd read it. All of it. So why wasn't she talking? It wasn't fear keeping her quiet. He was certain of that much. So what was it? Nobody in the room had the answer. Not yet. "Doc, you sure this is actually going to work?" Park Chul-soo easily. The largest man in the organisation, built like a refrigerator that had been to the gym, was lying face down on a mat with 12 acupuncture needles sticking out of his back. He didn't look dangerous right now. He looked like a man who desperately wanted his spine to cooperate. Aisha pulled one needle out. "This has been going on for 5 years at least." Chul-soo groaned in the way that means yes, but I don't want to admit it. 8 years, he said quietly. She stopped. 8 years and you never saw anybody about it? He stared at the floor. Been busy? She didn't push it. She reached into her bag, pulled out a moxa stick, and got to work. The smell of burning mugwort filled the room, earthy, medicinal, like the inside of an old apothecary. Slowly, by degrees, the knot across Chul-soo's back began to let go. After that, they started coming to her one by one. Bad knee, numb wrist, couldn't sleep. Aisha sat each of them down and pressed 2 fingers to their wrist to read their pulse, eyes closed, like she was listening for something the rest of the world couldn't hear. The men, one by one, went quiet. There was something about sitting there while she listened, really listened, that made it hard to talk. By the 3rd day, even the youngest guy in the crew shuffled in and said, kind of sheepishly, "I'm not really sick or anything." She glanced at him sideways. Your eyes get red a lot, right? Like bloodshot? He went rigid. How do you know that? You're staring at screens for more than 10 hours a day. Your whites give it away. He stared at her. She was already reaching for her kit. Meanwhile, Kang Tae-jun stood at the window of his office, watching nothing in particular. The afternoon clouds were thin and pale over Seoul. 20 years ago, he'd been 28. His older brother, Kang Tae-sung, ran a small back alley operation and needed a favour. Deliver an envelope. Just an envelope. Don't look inside. There's nothing to know. So he didn't look. He delivered it. And the second he handed it over, the door behind him came off its hinges and the police were everywhere. The envelope was a bribe. The evidence that it had passed through Tae-jun's hands had been assembled in advance. When they picked up Tae-sung as a witness, he was in a completely different city. Ironclad alibi. He was released the same afternoon. Tae-jun did 5 years. In a room that was cold in winter and smelled like mildew in summer. Alone the whole time. The day he walked out, his brother was waiting at the gate. Nice suit. Pressed collar. He was smiling, the way you smile when you've been waiting for something to be over. Tae-jun looked at him, and that was the last time he smiled. The absolute last. He built everything else on his own after that. The people, the organisation, the rules. Betray someone, pay for it. Protect your own, no matter what. Simple. His brother, meanwhile, kept climbing. Became a prosecutor, got promoted, made the papers. Kang Tae-jun saved every one of those newspaper clippings. He never threw a single one out. They lived in the bottom drawer of his desk, folded flat, in order. 5 days in, Aisha knocked on the office door. Nobody knocked on that door. You waited to be called. But she knocked, and when he said come in, she walked straight to the chair across from his desk and sat down without being invited. Her afro was slightly flattened on one side. She'd been doing moxa work on Chul-soo and caught the smoke wrong. I have something to say, she said. He watched her. Can I leave? Silence. The envelope. I don't know anything about an envelope. Stop lying. She went quiet. They sat there for a while, not talking. The streetlights outside came on one by one. Tae-jun turned to the window first. The Seoul evening pressed up against the glass and lit the side of his face. All angles, all shadow, those 2 lines between his brows deeper than usual in the yellow light. Aisha studied him. She had seen this face before, on people who had been hurting for so long that they'd stopped tracking where the pain started. People who had made peace with carrying it. She stood up without a word, crossed to the door, and stopped with her back to him. Your right shoulder, she said. If you keep ignoring it, you're heading for a frozen joint. Just so you know. He didn't answer. She left. The door clicked shut. His right hand, not his left, moved slowly upward, almost reached his shoulder, and stopped. Next morning, Dohan came in. Tae-jun looked up from the papers he wasn't reading. She's still here, Dohan said. You want me to let her go? A pause that lasted about 3 seconds. No. Dohan's eyebrow moved barely up and back down. Head worked for this man for 15 years, and that was the full range of surprise he allowed himself. Set her up in her own room. Tae-jun looked back at his papers. The acupuncture bag is making my office smell. Dohan nodded, left, and walked down the hallway alone. He stopped at the corner, away from everyone, and coughed once, quietly, into his fist. That was all. Prosecutor Kang Tae-sung made the evening news. Seoul Central District Prosecutor Kang Tae-sung launches full-scale investigation into organised crime. Citywide crackdown targets Gangnam Syndicate. The youngest member of the crew sprinted into the office with his tablet held out like an offering. Tae-jun looked at the screen. His brother's face smiled back at him from the camera. Same face he'd been seeing in newspaper clippings for years. Tae-jun handed the tablet back. Get out. The kid got out. The room emptied. Tae-jun sat alone. He opened the bottom drawer of his desk, reached in, a folded newspaper, the oldest one. He pressed 2 fingers flat against the top of it, like he was checking for a pulse. Then he closed the drawer. Dohan came in 2 hours later. They filed for a warrant. Raids coming within 3 days. Tae-jun was standing at the window again, His right shoulder sat a half-inch lower than his left. You could see it now, once you knew to look. The ledger, our copy. We don't have one. We never recovered the original. Taijun turned. Who took it? We pulled the alley footage. Dohan hesitated. Taijun waited. It was a woman. The clinic owner. She picked it up off the ground. The room went quiet in a specific way, the way a room goes quiet when something everyone already suspected turns out to be true. Taijun's eyes went sharp and narrow. He didn't say anything else. Then the raids began. Prosecutors and investigators hit 3 buildings simultaneously. Properties linked to the organization. Documents were seized by the boxful. 2 members were taken in for questioning. Taijun didn't move. What was strange, though, was the angle of the investigation. It wasn't going after the organization itself, the structure, the operations, the people. It was focused on one specific ledger. Not even the whole thing. Specific pages. Prosecutor Kang Tae-sung stood in front of the cameras again. We will see this through to the end. The flash photography lit up his face. He smiled for the cameras. It was a different smile from his brothers, easier, more practiced. The kind you learn to produce on command. These 2 had never been similar, not even at the beginning. That evening, Aisha was sitting in her storage room facing the wall, both hands in her lap, eyes closed. Her acupuncture bag sat in the corner. She was perfectly still, the same way she sat in her clinic, in her chair, when she was waiting for a patient. The door opened. Taijun came in. She didn't open her eyes. He stood in the doorway. Did you see the ledger? She opened her eyes slowly, said nothing. Did you read the whole thing? Silence again. He stepped into the room. The floor creaked under his weight. Aisha looked up at him finally. Why is a prosecutor's name in there? Taijun went very still. Aisha stood up. Her afro filled the space between her and the ceiling, caught in the fluorescent light. Kang Tae-sung. Same last name as you. He said nothing. The ledger has transaction records going back 15 years. Before he was even a prosecutor, the muscle along Taijun's jaw moved once. Just once. Aisha watched it. She'd seen that look too. The look of someone who knows exactly where it hurts, and has decided, long ago, never to say so out loud. He said it quietly, like he was reading something off a page. The prosecutor who came after me. He's my older brother. The room held its breath. Aisha's chest tightened. He said it without any change in his face. No bitterness, no weight, just the flat sound of a fact that had been living in him so long it had worn smooth. It was old. It was done. Saying it out loud didn't make it new. Aisha looked at him for a long moment. She was choosing her words, or maybe deciding not to choose at all. Have you eaten? She said. He blinked. Actually blinked. That's what you're going with right now. She shrugged, one shoulder. You need to eat before you can think straight. That's just physiology. Dohan was in the hallway, back against the wall, arms crossed, not moving. 15 years with this organization. 15 years of knowing when to be invisible. Head heard everything. Head heard the boss talk more sentences in a row tonight than he had in the last 6 months combined. Head heard the brother's name out loud, for the first time, from the boss' own mouth. Dohan pushed off the wall and walked quietly to the door. Knocked 3 times. He spoke before it opened. Doctor, can I trust you? No answer. He opened the door anyway. In the fluorescent light, Aisha's afro glowed like something that had decided to be here, in this room, exactly on purpose. Well, would you look at that? A mob boss just told his deepest secret to a woman he kidnapped, and his right-hand man is out in the hallway, making a decision nobody asked him to make, out loud. Here's the thing about people like Kang Tae-jun. They don't break under pressure. They break under kindness, under the one question nobody thought to ask. Have you eaten? 4 words. 20 years of walls, and it was 4 words that got through. That's not weakness. That's just how human beings work, whether they run a crime organization or a corner clinic. 5 in the morning. 12 vehicles lined up in front of the building. Headlights on. Tactical gear. The moment the emergency lights inside kicked on, the whole place turned into controlled chaos. Men in the hallways, feet on the stairs, voices everywhere. Taijun was in his office. He hadn't been asleep. He was sitting at his desk in his full suit, very still, like he'd been waiting. The bottom drawer was open. The newspaper, the oldest one, was unfolded on the desk in front of him. His brother's face looked up at the ceiling. Taijun looked at it for a moment. Then he folded it carefully, once, twice, and slid it into the inside pocket of his jacket. The door went in hard. 5 investigators. Taijun stood up from his chair, slowly. No rush. No resistance. When they cuffed him, his face didn't change. Down the hall, Duhan was pinned against the wall. Chul-Su was taken down on the stairs. The building folded in on itself in under 4 minutes. As they walked Taejun down the corridor toward the elevator, he passed the storage room. The door was cracked open. Aisha was watching through the gap, hair pressed flat on one side, half asleep, eyes wide awake. Taejun looked at her. He didn't nod. He didn't stop. He didn't say anything at all. He just looked for maybe 1 second, and then he kept walking. Aisha watched him go. The elevator doors closed at the end of the hall. The building went quiet. 2 investigators turned and started walking toward the storage room. Aisha opened the door all the way before they reached it. The investigator in front stopped. He took in the afro, the beat-up tracksuit, the acupuncture bag in her hand. "Ma'am, who are you?" Aisha said, "I run a Korean medicine clinic." Like that answered everything. In a way, it kind of did. 10A. Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office. Front steps. 20 cameras, minimum. Kang Tae-sung stood behind the microphones in a perfect suit with perfect posture and spoke in the measured, practiced tone of a man who had done this many times. "We have apprehended the head of the organization. The relevant financial records have been confirmed destroyed." Flash. Click. Reporters wrote it down. Tae-sung let a small, appropriate smile settle on his face. It fit the moment exactly. Had been building that smile for a very long time. And then something happened. At the back of the press pool, someone was moving forward. Through the cameras, through the reporters, cutting a path through the crowd with quiet, unhurried determination. Big afro. Worn tracksuit under a white clinic coat that she must have grabbed on the way. Aisha walked straight to the microphone stand and stopped in front of it. In her hands, a thick stack of printed pages. Kang Tae-sung's eyes landed on her. He had no idea who she was. The cameras swiveled. "I own a Korean medicine clinic in Gangnam." Aisha's voice didn't shake. Not even a little. 10 days ago, I found an envelope in an alley near my clinic. There was a ledger inside. The smile on Tae-sung's face began to dissolve. "You just told these reporters the ledger was destroyed." She raised the printed pages. "That ledger? I memorized it. Every single page. Every camera flash went off at once." Kang Tae-sung took 1 step backward. In front of the microphones. In front of every camera. In front of everyone. She started from the beginning. The first transaction, 15 years ago. Date, amount, name, account number. She didn't miss a line. The reporters' pens stopped moving. They gave up writing and just pointed their cameras instead. The printed pages moved through the front row, hand to hand. Tae-sung leaned toward his aide and whispered something fast. The aide's face went pale. He shook his head. Tae-sung's hand, inside his jacket pocket, curled into a fist. The fabric of his trousers pulled taut along the seam. Inside the detention center, Kang Tae-jun sat in the meeting room. No handcuffs. Both hands flat on the table. He wasn't expecting a visitor. He was just sitting. Down the hallway outside the glass, a mounted television was playing the news. Aisha was at the podium. Her afro spread out wide in the camera frame, unmistakable, like a signature. The white coat caught the flashbulbs and turned brilliant white. Taijun watched the screen. His face didn't move. Nothing about him moved, except something was different. The 2 lines between his eyebrows, the ones that had been carved in for 20 years, softened, just slightly. The outer corners of his eyes drifted down, the way they do when something loosens in a person. and the corners of his mouth muscles that hadn't been asked to do this in 2 decades started, slowly, like they were remembering how, to move upward. A guard walked past in the hallway, glanced in, looked again, kept going. On the TV, Aisha was handing out printed pages to the reporters. Taijun put one hand flat against the glass partition. It was cold. He left it there anyway. Prosecutor Kang Tae-sung was suspended from duty. 3 days after Aisha stood at that podium, the ledger contents ran on the front page of every major paper. Dates, amounts, names in print for everyone. 2 of Tae-sung's associates confessed first. By the 3rd afternoon, he'd hired a defense attorney. On the 4th morning, he tried to board a flight out of the country. He didn't make it past the gate at Incheon Airport. The cameras were there waiting. He pulled his jacket collar up over his face as he was escorted back through the terminal. 20 years ago, he stood at a prison gate in a pressed suit, smiling. Now he was just a man being walked somewhere he didn't want to go. Kang Tae-jun was released 2 days later. The front doors of the detention center opened. He walked out. Same suit as the day they brought him in, 10 days lived in by now, but he wore it the same way. Do-han had the car waiting. No one else. No press, no crowd. Just a quiet Seoul morning with low clouds. Taijun got in. Do-han pulled out of the lot without a word. They drove in silence until they reached the Gangnam on-ramp. Do-han spoke first. What do you want to do with the organization? Taejun looked out the window. White clouds sitting low and flat over the city. Dissolve it. Do-han nodded once. Neither of them said anything else the rest of the way. The dissolution was quiet. The office cleared out over 3 days, furniture, files, all of it. The members came one by one to collect their envelopes and leave. Chul-soo was the last one out. He stopped at the door, turned around, and bowed. Deep, slow, no words. Taijun stood across the empty room and said nothing back. That was the goodbye. The youngest guy looked down at his shoes on the way out. His eyes were red, but nobody looked directly at him, so it didn't count. When they were all gone, Taejun stood alone in the office. Just the leather couch left. A long rectangle of afternoon sun came through the window and stretched across the cushions. Meanwhile, Aisha unlocked her clinic. It had been dark for over 10 days. She wiped the dust off the sign with her sleeve, aired the place out, and stood in the doorway for a moment, breathing it in, the ghost of burned mugwort. The creak of the old wooden chair, the low afternoon light coming through the front window. Everything was exactly where she'd left it. She put her acupuncture kit back on its shelf, flipped on the sign. The light spilled out into the alley. A stray cat stopped on the pavement, looked up at the glowing sign, considered it for a moment, and walked on. The first patient of the day arrived before she was fully set up. The door opened. She looked up. A man in a suit, deep lines between the eyebrows. He walked in, looked around the clinic once, then crossed to the waiting area couch and lay down on it. Completely flat. What are you doing? Aisha said. Taijun stared at the ceiling. I'm here about my back. She looked at him for a moment. Your back? Sure. The shoulder dragged the back into it. He said nothing. The couch creaked under him, comfortable and familiar. She picked up her kit and walked over. Pulled a chair up next to the couch, sat down, reached for his wrist. You didn't run, she said. He kept looking at the ceiling. No reason to run. Her 3 fingers pressed into the inside of his wrist, reading the pulse the way she always did. Quiet, focused, unhurried. He closed his eyes. What if you had? She said. She kept her voice even, conversational, her fingers still working. Well, run if you want. I'll come find you myself. The corner of Taejun's mouth moved, slowly, deliberately, all the way up. 20 years. It wasn't a big smile. It wasn't the kind that lights up a room or makes a sound, but the lines between his brows released. The corners of his eyes softened. His mouth curved upward and stayed there. He kept his eyes closed. Aisha kept reading his pulse without missing a beat. She didn't look at his face. She didn't say a word about it. She just kept her 3 fingers on his wrist and let him have it. Outside the window, the alley filled with a small gust of wind. The clinic sign swayed. Aisha's hair shifted in the draft just slightly, just at the edges. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left that needed to be said. It took 20 years of silence, 5 years of a bad back, 1 cold basement, and 4 words, "Have you eaten though?" to get here. Aisha didn't win Kang Tae-jun over by being brave. She won him over by refusing to see him as anything other than a person, not a threat, not a boss, just someone who'd been carrying something heavy for a very long time and never once been asked if he wanted help. Some walls don't need to be knocked down. You just have to sit next to them long enough and they come down on their own.
1. Even the most guarded person alive will eventually crack for someone who isn't afraid of them. It's not armor that protects a person, it's the illusion that everyone is afraid. Once that illusion's gone, so is the wall. 2. Bad things survive. For as long as nobody looks too closely, the moment someone pays real attention, reads the whole thing, remembers it, says it out loud, in front of cameras, the whole structure collapses. Record, remember, speak. 3. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is ask if they've eaten, not because food fixes anything, because it means you see them as a human, being first. That's rarer than it sounds. This story is a work of fiction. I hope today's story brought a little warmth to your heart. Have you had a good meal today? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like to join us on more of these human journeys, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. Take care of yourself.